Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's card I am doing, this is the third kinetic card this week, so I'm just running through the pieces that we have. It will make more sense the more we go along with this, but this is also a Whitlock SVG cut file, and so there's some really funky pieces here, some of which I decided not to use, but that's just because of how the whole thing kind of evolved. But I used the sort of basics of the whole thing and it's just the coolest thing. I was so pleased. So to start with, I'm going to ink all of this. So this did take a little while and this is a longer video, so I hope you stick around to the end. But I'm going to start with the blue part. So we're doing like an ocean themed Christmas card. Weird, I know. The brain does not compute, but it will make sense. So I've got some, I believe I've got Mermaid Lagoon. I can't remember the colours. Mermaid Lagoon. We'll go through it. Blueprint Sketch and Faded Jeans, I want to say. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I just picked three blues that I thought would fade quite nicely from light to dark. So light being at the top and then working my way down to the sandy bit at the bottom. So Mermaid Lagoon being at the top. And then I'm going to pick out, let's see what this one is because I didn't write anything down, Faded Jeans. And then Chipped Sapphire, I'm sure that's what it was actually. And I'm just going back and forth. Now this is plain white cardstock, this is box standard cardstock like I've used in quite a few of my videos recently. This isn't Bristol Smooth, which is amazing with ink blending, especially distressing. It's not watercolor cardstock, which is again brilliant with distressing. This is box standard 300 or 350 GSM white cardstock. That's it. Really easy. Most people will have box standard cardstock. Now this is a Craft UK brand, but if you can hear that, that is the foxes outside having sounds like a screaming child, but anyway, I digress. So for the bottom, I'm using some brushed corduroy, just one shade of brown, and I just used that to sort of blend, and then I'll go back and forth to sort of make sure that line of ink between the blue and the brown is sort of fades into itself, right? And hopefully it isn't too harsh a line kind of thing. Now it looks a total mess now, and I know it looks completely messy totally messed up, but for some reason on this cardstock it's very smooth cardstock, but it seems to, whether it's the distress ink or it's the Stampin' Up ink which I used on last week's videos, it seems to smooth out really quite nicely when it when it dries. So when you've got your normal cardstocks at home, just try them. White cardstock, you can ink and blend and do all sorts of things with it. Just wing it. That's what I've done with this cardstock, and I really like it. I obviously love all the other cardstocks, and I obviously will go back to them because I love them. But I just thought this was really quite cool to cut all these pieces out and then ink them up and make this what turns out, I think, to be a very cool card. I was really quite chuffed with it. So with these little flag pieces, these are going to be part of the shutter card. So this is part of the mechanism. So what I'm doing is I'm actually lining them up where there's little marks on the biggest panel to show where those will go when you come to sticking it together. And what I was doing is just lining it up so that I could make sure that all the background and everything blends into the same, so it looks like one piece. Does that make sense? So even though there's all these different pieces, I want to make sure that each layer, when you're looking at it, it looks like I've colored it all at the same time. I mean, I have colored it all at the same time, but so that each layer lines up so that all the sand is at the same sort of level, all the different shades of blue at the same sort of, at the same levels, so that it's sort of your eye sort of makes it look like, or sort of reads like it's the same piece, but it's obviously got a mechanism in it. Hopefully that made some sense. So with this, and actually I don't think I used one of the darkest ink color there. Don't think I used Chip Sapphire in the end. Just thinking about it and watching this. So do you see how that panel kind of blends into the background so that it's kind of all one sort of cohesive area? That didn't make sense. Hopefully some of this makes sense, because hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. Anyway, so I was going to do the second panel, second flag piece off camera, but I decided I was in the middle of it. I thought I may as well just carry on. My camera was behaving for a change. It gets a little hot sometimes, so I don't like the heat so much. It's like its mother. But anyway, and so I decided that I would just carry on and do it. Otherwise I would have done them at the same time. So here I'm just sort of double checking roughly where this darker blue goes and then where the lighter blue goes. So this is all of them. So do you see how they all kind of look like they're supposed to be together? If that made any sense. There's also two panels that will cut out for the front of the card, because don't forget, well, you might not know this, but this is actually a gatefold card. So this will actually fit on this section of the card, which is actually on the outside. So I wanted to do the same thing and ink them in the same way. So I'm just going to use exactly the same colors, and do exactly the same thing, but just so that this lot will go on the front of the card. I'm not being too careful about like how what's the word, like how they're not going to match exactly line, you know, with the inside, but you'll have the same sort of gradient of color. So the you know, the sand might be a little shallower than it on the inside, but that I wasn't worried about that bit. It was more so that they it's all matchy. And I don't normally do that sort of thing because it doesn't faze me so much. And even just going between the blue and, you know, what would be the sand and the first bit of blue for the ocean, even just going back and forth on that to blend it, because if you think about it, when you're in the ocean, there's no harsh line. Everything's very fluid, obviously, because it's the ocean, but it's very fluid. So you're going to have some gradient of color between the sand and the water colors, you know, those blues and greens and turquoises and all those beautiful things that you have there. So there's going to be a gradient of color. So I didn't mind that there's almost like a bit of a green going on there. I didn't actually mind that, because I thought, well, that actually probably makes more sense than having a harsh line between your ground, you know, the bottom of the ocean and the seawater. So I'm taking my distress sprayer with some water in it and just inking the crud out of this. Not inking, spraying the crud out of it. And because it's not actually a watercolor paper or a Bristol Smooth or anything like that, even when I blotted it off, not a lot came off, because it just went straight into the paper, because that's the nature of the paper, so, or the card. So I wasn't that worried, but I did get some sort of maybe bigger blobs of water. that's not even the right way to say that, but you know, the bigger drops of water, that's the word. I did mop those up, and then I've got my trusty little spray that's going to make it into probably every video now. And I was actually looking, I have got other sprays that I've made. These are actually, ironically, could have used them now, but they're like years old. They're actually little mister bottles, but they had like an antibac spray in them, and I filled them with different mica powders. I've got some Cosmic Shimmer ones in different colors, and I've got some you know, some other Ranger ones in different colors, but I went back to this white one because I couldn't find the right color while I was trying to do this, because I didn't really plan this bit, so I didn't want to waste too much time trying to find that. And I wanted some shimmer in the background because it's the ocean. In hindsight, I probably would have just spritzed the whole thing, you know, instead of using the nozzle, because I think, or using both maybe, because that just, especially for the ocean, it glistens and shimmers all the time, and I love it. Love the ocean. I realise now that this is upside down, but don't worry, I will put it the right way up in a minute. So I'm going to show you now how to do this. So this is in real time, so that hopefully you guys will see how this goes together a bit better, especially if my especially that my lack of explanation today seems to be gone. I like can't function as a human or something today. So there are little score marks that it creates, and they're like little dotted lines, if you like. So when you actually, if you're using just a cut file as it is, it will actually put little cut marks in. I have a scoring tool for my Cricut, so I used that, but it still just did the little like dotted lines. So I'm just going in with a scoreboard. I can see them easy enough in real life, for the most part, my old eyes, and I kind of lined it up and then scored those lines. So there's the two panels on either side to make the gatefold part. And then there's those two like wing things at the top and bottom that we're going to score as well, and those will help to create the center, and actually that center panel is where most of this iris, well, that's where it's going to be. That's the main mechanism, if you like. So I'm just, actually, I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I doing here? I think I lost where this line was. Oh, there we go. I couldn't work out what I was doing there. So yeah, so that center panel then becomes the where the mechanism of the whole thing is going to go. So I'm just lining up these two to get the score lines in. And what I do is I find the first little part of the score, and I actually put my ball tool on that mark and then sort of move, and it's, if you do it gently, you can actually get it to go into one of the grooves in the board, and that makes it a little easier. Once you know where that is, then you can kind of eyeball the line, the score line, and then get that, you know, scored. So the same with these two like flaggy looking things. There's a score line. You can see there's a slight like it's not, the edges are not completely straight. There's a slight what's the word, angle to it, and again I'm just scoring on both of those where those score lines are, and that's all the scoring, I believe. Yes, and then these are the two front panels. When I'm finished faffing. Right, this is actually right at the beginning I showed you, and it actually looked like it had sort of two, almost like a circle on the front. I actually trimmed it down to use it as a flat wrap. It's essentially the wrap that will go around the card to hold it together. So like a I don't know, like a belt around your card. In the end, I chose not to even use it. I didn't feel like I'd needed to. But you can, and a lot of gatefold cards that are made like this have this little, like, I'm going to call it a belt. They have this little belt for the card, and you know, if you wanted to use it, you could easily, you know, you can use it. But I just thought, I tried it and then I went, it just didn't work for me, so I didn't bother in the end. That's why I didn't bother inking it as well, because I wasn't sure if I was going to use it. And then there was also an extra piece that would have been for the front panel, that for the long center piece, sorry, with a hole, you know, one with a hole in it. I ended up not using that either because it just didn't make sense for what I wanted to do here. So I've basically taken a few pieces out, and just used the sort of core pieces to create the whole card, and it works fab. Now, I scored it the way you're supposed to score it, and then realized that I actually needed to score it the other way. I fold them the other way. These pieces will actually fold inside, hence gatefold. You know, my brain kicked in eventually. So I'm going to start with these two flag pieces. So on that little tab is where the score line is. That's where you're going to put adhesive. On the colored side, so on the inked side is where you're going to put that. and only on that bit. And then what you're going to do is also make sure, and I thankfully did this, you are, when you go to stick them down, you've got to make sure that you have them on the right side. So I'm just going to sort of show you what's going to happen here. That will line up with those there's little marks on the side side gate, if you like, and that helps you, it guides you as to where about to put it. To be honest, you could put that anywhere. If you wanted your shutter to open further up or further down in your card, depending on the design that you've done, that's what you do. That's where you put those things. That bit didn't actually matter, but as a guide, this is going to have it somewhat central, and that's, you know, that's the main part, you know, the main sort of mechanism, I guess, if that made any sense. So I'm going to take the tape off one of the tabs, and I'm going to make sure that I've got it the right way up, because bear in mind I've got this ocean ground, you know, if it was just one color it wouldn't matter. And then there's those two little cut marks. I'm just going to show you those. There's two little cut marks, top and bottom, and you're going to line it up on the score line, open like this, and then you're going to fold. I'm just rescoring that. Then you're going to fold. So I'm lining it up between those two little marks, but I'm going to butt it up into the fold, and then when it sticks down, you'll see in a second, when it folds open, it will fold back on itself. It will make sense. So do you see how it folds back on itself, but it's actually stuck to the other panel? So with the second one, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but what I'm going to do on this one is, because of where I've stuck that first one, I'm not going to use the guidelines so much. I'm going to make sure that these two are lined up at the top and bottom together so that they are straight to each other. So, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm just burnishing to, you know, just helps a bit. So these two will sit like that. Now, what you're also going to do is, or do I do this yet? Oh, so on these two little pieces, I was thinking ahead of myself for a change. On these two pieces, you're actually going to stick it to the non-inked part, so on the white bit. So these are going to fold into the card, and that's where you're going to stick that center panel. And again, this will make sense as we go, but hopefully doing this in sort of real time, one, it shows you how slow I am. I don't craft as quickly as you see in most of my videos. That would be amazing. And again, I'm just burnishing it to make sure it sticks on there really well. So this, which is upside down at the moment, is going to actually stick to these little flaps, I guess. So I'm going to do one at a time, because I just found that easier than trying to line them both up at the same time. So I'm going to start with the top one, and I was going to do my little trick, and then in the end I just stuck it on. So what you also want to do with your eyes, you don't actually need to do it at this point, but you need to make sure that the flag on the left and top, it doesn't matter which way around you do it, but make sure that one of the flags is on top of, so the one at the top is underneath and the one at the bottom is on the right. I'm not explaining that very well. I never knew how I was going to explain that. I'll try that again in a minute. So basically you want them to sort of overlap, but you don't want the left one completely on top of the right one, or vice versa. You want the top, say the top flag, to be on the top of the left flag, to be on top of the right hand one, and then the bottom right hand flag to be underneath the left hand one. No idea if that made any sense, but hopefully you can see from the picture what I'm doing there. So they kind of like interlink. I don't know how to explain that. You can see from the video, hopefully, if that made any sense. So I'm going to make sure they're doing their interlocking, maybe that's the word, thing. And then I'm going to have taken the tape off the bottom flap, and I'm just bringing the top, this main panel, down and onto the bottom. And I'm going to burnish again, but that is your iris. No, shutter. Oh, I'm doing too many kinetic cards at the moment. That is your shutter card. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I love that. Anyway, that's your mechanism. So you could do this for anything. Anything. I'm doing a Christmas card. I know, an ocean themed Christmas card. But you could do this for anything. You could do this for birthdays. You could do it for bar mitzvahs. You could do it for Halloween. You could do it for Easter. You could do it just because. Whatever you want to do, you can make this card into. The whole point of this week's cards is to show you that yes, I have themed things this week, because I'm doing, you know, Halloween on Thursdays and whatever on Tuesdays, and Saturdays is Christmas. But these are the mechanisms for all of these cards this week are for anything. You can do whatever you want to do with them. If you need a birthday card and you want to do something different, make a shutter card, gatefold shutter, you know, or an iris card, or whatever you like. So that's the whole point of these cards this week, is to show you the kinetic bit. Because when I first started crafting, paper crafting, 900 years ago, not already obviously, they were huge. Like, kinetic cards were huge then. It was like everybody made them, and like all the time. So this, you know, going back to this, which it seems to be becoming more trendy again, is just so cool. And now that you can get things like SVG files as well, for those who need it, it makes it so much easier if you've got the machines that can do it for you. Or there's dies. There's a lot of companies that are bringing their dies out now as well. So this is that little band thing, or belt, or whatever it is. And I didn't like the way it felt on there, so I just decided not to worry with it. To be honest, it says, you know, once it's in the envelope, it's fine. It's just an added touch that you could use for it. So the stamp set that I've used is Lawn Fawn's Christmas Fishes. So hence the ocean Christmas themed card. I thought this was hysterical, and so cute. So what I do, and this is just something that I decided is probably a good starting point, especially if you're making something like this, which is a bigger card. You don't necessarily know how many pieces you need. You don't know how, you don't know how much of anything you're going to need for it. So to start with, I stamped 3 of everything, and I stamped pretty much everything in the set. In fact, I think I did stamp everything in the stamp set, but I stamped it 3 times, and each of the elements, 3 rocks, there's 2 different rocks, 3 of each of them, 3 of all the little presents, 3 of all the fish, 3 of all the octopi, all that sort of stuff. I just stamped 3 of them, and you're gonna have the song in your head now. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus. Seriously, should not. I'm sorry if you guys are like still here. Thanks. Sorry about that. Anyway, but now you've got that song in your head. Just saying. Right, so with your I'll try and get to, some sort of normal in a minute. Don't forget, with the whole point of an iris is to reveal something behind the iris. That's the whole, that's the thing behind it. So don't forget to put something in your iris card, in the iris itself, so that when somebody opens it, they go, oh, there's something behind it. So I put one of the octopi in there. As long as you stick it flat, you don't want to put it on 3D or anything like that, because it could possibly interfere. I don't know if it will, but it probably will interfere with the mechanism. So I just stuck it flat in there, but I thought that was quite cute, so I just put that one in there, and he's winking at you when you open the iris. And then I just decided that I'd put all these little characters, and I just dotted them around wherever. This is the ocean. Everything's very fluid, which is the ocean, I know, and it's water, I know, but it's very fluid, and it's very, there's no straight, nature is amazing. There's no straight lines. It's not what's the word? It's not square and sort of boxy, and you know, there's a lot of movement in nature, and that's what I love about nature, and it's that movement in nature that makes things a very calm environment. And so for me, there was, you know, making an ocean themed, albeit Christmas card, which is funny. It didn't matter if things didn't quite, things could go wherever, is what I'm trying to say, because that's nature of it. And nature's not very boxy and all that. In fact, it's not boxy at all. It's beautiful, and it's I love it. I'm in love with nature. I don't know who isn't, but I am. So and I love the ocean. The ocean is one of my favorite places, so you know, I could not do this. So because some of them are actually singing Here Comes Santa Claus. So, do you get the claws thing? Yeah. So I had to put music notes all over it. So they're singing loud and they are just belting it out. So yeah, so it was a bit of a silly card, but I love it. I think it turned out really sweet. And on the front, I decided to leave it quite a lot more simple because there's so much going on the inside of the card. Although there's quite a bit on the outside, but it's like, well, what's going on here? And then you open it up and it's just bam. And I just love how it turned out. I honestly didn't know how this was going to turn out. I never know how any of my stuff's going to turn out, but I love it. And when you then go to post it, it is flat. So there's no, there is no real bulk to it. It's a folds flat. So it's really quite easy for mailing as well. So bonus. So I hope you've enjoyed this rather crazy video tutorial today, and I hope you give these shadow cards give them a go. They're so much fun, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.